Hi everyone, welcome to another Reasons and Resources episode. And in this episode I'm going to be talking about reasons and resources for learning the Simula programming language. So I think, and this again is purely a personal opinion, but I think that the main reason for learning something like Simula, along with a number of other languages that I've been covering in, I would say, the last 3 or 4 weeks in this series, its historical significance. Simula, as you might see here, is considered to be the first object-oriented programming languages. Now it is multi-paradigm, so in terms of sort of learning object-oriented fundamentals, it's useful, but the reason why I bring that up is it's not quite like something like Smalltalk, which is a pure object-oriented programming language. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is one possible reason why you might want to learn something like Simula is to get a feel of what an early object-oriented programming language is like, with a lot of the more modern frameworks, if you like. I'm trying to think of the best word for this, but the more modern attributes of an object-oriented programming language around it. So with quite a bit of stuff, I suppose, stripped away. But as I pointed out, Simula is multi-paradigm. So you're not going to get the same experience of object-oriented programming as if you learn Smalltalk. But if you're trying to sort of get an interesting historical slice through object-oriented programming, then it's, sort of ground zero, I suppose, for object-oriented programming. So so it's historical significance. There is a conceptual clarity in the language as well. So that might be another reason why, if you're trying to grasp fundamental OOP principles without the complexities of a modern language, it might be helpful for that. Now, Simula was designed for simulation. And so what do we mean by that? Well, if you look on here, you can see computer simulation language is used to describe the operation of a simulation on a computer. So if that's a sort of angle that you're going for, and you want to experience that or want to have the experience of working in a language which is specifically designed for simulation, then that might well be another reason for, learning the language. I was just going to see actually whether there's a big list here so it's got Simula. I must admit, off the top of my head, I'm not super familiar with simulation programming languages. Simula is probably the only one that I'm ever aware of. I think I had heard about this, and you might notice a number of these are related to doing engineering, astronomy, that sort of thing. Physics stuff, yeah. But certainly another slice that you can take through it. And what I'm hoping to do in the future is to do an actual series called Programming Language Slices, where I look at languages from different, slicing through them in different ways. So some episodes will be about a concept in programming and how that looks in different languages. So something like, the if-then statement, or something like switch statements, those sort of things. And then how they manifest themselves in different languages. Another thing I might do in the series, slices of programming languages, or whatever, programming language slices, whatever I decide to call it, is look at a particular paradigm and how it has evolved over time. So if I was to do one about OOP, no doubt I would talk about Simula. And so its influence on modern languages is, again, tied in with this historical significance. So sometimes it's useful to see that, and how has it, how have elements from Simula passed over into the languages it's influenced, like C++ and other object-oriented languages. So it's interesting to see, what's sort of survived the transition. What was a killer feature of a particular paradigm that survived the transition into another language from an influencing language. And so that provides you sort of insights into design decisions, and other various things sort of connected to that. You might also get a bit of understanding about, because we're talking about simulations, the history of and design of things like virtual machines. And the other thing is, if you work in, say, a niche academic field, it's quite possible you may come across Simula. But for me, as I've said already, it's really just the historical perspective and interesting things to talk about in videos. So I'll include links to the Wikipedia article, including sort of relevant deep links on the article that might be helpful, just so you can get in there quickly. But let's just move through this, because I've only really got a few things to talk about, a few resources to share. But some of these resources go pretty deep. So yeah, it doesn't look like many, but you certainly can find yourself into some interesting places. Before we do that, let's just have a quick look at the information on most popular technologies on Stack Overflow survey we're still looking at the 2024, when this video is being recorded, which is sometime around the beginning of April. I'm recording this, so in April we won't have seen the 2025 one yet, so we're still looking at 2024. So in here we're trying to find Simula, and is it even on the list? Quite possibly not. Thinking about it, I can't see it anywhere myself. So it sort of just shows you, it's dropped off. I don't know how popular it was, to be honest, in the day. And when we get to the end, I'll show you some interesting resources where you can sort of hear about the history of Simula. Admired and desired. Well, if it's not on the previous list, it probably will not be on here. Yeah, don't see it anywhere unless it's hiding out. But obviously there are other object-oriented languages on this list. And then finally, top paying. And again, really nowhere to be seen. But, I'm not surprised. So, probably not a reason to learn Simula if you're trying to sort of say, how does it compare against, if I was to learn, say, Closure instead, or, it's not even on the list. So, in terms of resources, this is a good starting point. Parts of this, however, you may notice, may not be available necessarily in English. But you have to sort of see how you get on there. However, there is a very useful resource, this portable Simula Revisited. And I found this really useful for playing around with Simula. Now, depending on what version of Java you're running on your machine, it does have different versions for that, because it runs on Java. It uses Java to run. But there's some really useful documents here, or links to useful documents. So probably I would suggest, if you are interested in the learning the language and playing around with it, this probably is your best starting point. If you just want to like dive straight in, roll your sleeves up, download this, run it. It's a Java run, install it, and then once you install it, there'll be a shortcut where you can just run it going forward. Yeah, the other thing with this is I always have fun and games with JREs. I used to seem to be so easier back in the day. I don't know why, but yeah, I had on one of my machines it went on fine. Another machine, I think I had an earlier version of Java, and I was having fun and games trying to update it, because I think at the moment is Java 24 not. It's sort of not quite in the full release stage yet. It's out there, you can get hold of it, and it's ready for release, but it's not packaged up quite as neatly as 25. Or at least when I sorry, it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's not. So repeat myself here. Yeah, it isn't packaged up quite as nicely as some of the earlier ones, in terms of if you go to the Java website. And there is a link here where you can go and actually install that. Oh, I think we're in luck. We may be... Now we're okay. Oh, that's what I was thinking about. So it's 25, not 24. Sorry, I'm getting confused. Yeah. So this is 24 or later, isn't it? Yeah. So, and I think 24. Saying that, if you, I'm trying to think why I had a bit of a problem with this. It looks like it is all here actually. Yeah. So I know one of these had a slightly neater install path. And that's why, yeah, so just be a bit careful when you're installing Java. Work out what you've already got on your machine. It looks like we have the full installer here though, so you should be good. Yeah, so, yeah. It must be 25 I'm thinking about that I had problems with, because I had to sort of download it and then move into the directory. So just a heads up there. Looks like it's okay for 24, but 25, just be a bit careful. There's this, which is actually linked to, if you come in from here, this is on archive. So, Introduction to Programming in Simula. Then we have the Dyro Simula homepage, which I have no idea when this was last updated, but it is an interesting, like, historical resource. There's a Simula language reference. There we go, and I'll include a link to that so you can dig through. We have this as well. And then this is really good if you can last all the way through. I did actually listen to it all one weekend. I sort of worked my way through it, but it's fascinating listening to various talks about the key moments in the history of Simula, and also there's some interesting talks by James Gosling, and obviously interspersed into this is stories about things like Smalltalk as well. So yeah, well worth checking out if you're interested. And then finally, this fella, yeah, my Program Polyglot website. Yeah, didn't really come together on the Simula stuff yet. I'm not really in a position with Simula to adequately critique code that's produced by LLMs, so therefore there isn't any section here until I can do that. And once that happens, I'll complete this. It was never really my intention to keep this in step with the Reasons and Resources episodes anyway. And what I'm tending to do with my Programming Polyglot project is where I get stuck and I feel that I'm not in a position to make an informed judgment of the quality of the code, then I will skip over and do something else. So you can see I've done Prologue, I've done most of I/O, but there's some stuff I've got to get sorted out in my head to do with parallel programming. Perl R-Stav, so you can see where I sort of jumped over. Yeah. So I just, once I've done all the ones I can do fairly easily and critique, and I get to the end, I'm going to go back through, and then I'll have to sit down for weeks on end probably. The other thing that's slightly deflected me is I've been really interested recently in the more recent releases of large language models and things like older concepts like mixture of experts, and also these sort of newer reasoning models as well. So I got a bit sidetracked on that, and I was basically trying to work my way through these different languages and experiment with trying to interface with a llama through all the different languages. So, you know, I did Python, JavaScript, got really stuck on Lua, and then the other day I had a breakthrough and was able to properly get it to talk to the Llama API, because I was having some timeout issues and various other things. Ruby, that worked okay. And I've got a video coming up about this. Once I get through to probably Rust, I'll do a video or a series of videos about talking to LLMs, particularly a llama, through different programming languages, through like the API endpoints and how you do that. So yeah, something to look forward to. Anyway, thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.